So one thing we haven't done in a long time, or at least about a week or so, is a good Lorehammer video here. So we're going to get back to our typical production of the lore of the Warhammer world. There's been a lot of excitement with Total War Warhammer 2 having now come out. I know I've not stopped playing the High Elves since it came out for the most part, and that's actually going to play pretty well into this video here, because today we're going to go through the legendary lords of the High Elf Kingdom of Ulthuan. And these are the lords from the tabletop, but it's pretty safe to say that these are a lot of the lords that we could expect in future DLC, or maybe in the third game as additional characters for the High Elves. Who really knows? But a lot of what we're going to talk about today, we're going to do the same style that we usually do. I'll read the actual lore blurb from the book directly. We'll go through some of the actual special rules and mechanics of those characters and talk about how they're probably going to translate into a Total War Warhammer 2. So we'll go through each lord as we always do, and hopefully you guys will get a better understanding. I'm pretty excited to do this video here. I love the High Elves, as you guys do know, and I'm really excited to tell you guys a lot about these legendary lords that didn't quite make it into the game just yet, because they're all really diverse and really amazing to me. So I'm really excited to tell you guys about everything here coming up. We'll actually start with one of my favorite and one of the lords I use the most. Eltharion the Grim, the Warden of Tor Ivris. Eltharion the Grim is one of the greatest of all elven lords. Many times has he achieved what would have been thought impossible. It was Eltharion who was the first of Ulthuan's generals to dare an assault on Nagaron itself and live to speak of it, and he who finally brought about the defeat of Wog Grom. For his valor in that battle, Eltharion was elected Warden of Tor Ivris, and though he is a dour ruler, the people of that fair city love him dearly. Eltharion's early rule was split equally between scouring greenskins from the land and overseeing repairs to Tor Ivris' network of waystones. In the first task, Eltharion was aided by the nobles of his realm, who rallied to his banner with an enthusiasm not seen for many long generations. In the second, he sought the assistance of the Loremaster Belinar. Though Eltharion had successfully stabilized the waystone of Tor Ivris, he felt that luck had guided his hand rather than more than judgment in that task, and he did not wish to see ill fortune or rashness on his part destroy Ulthuan. With his realm thus secured, Eltharion took his blade overseas, not to the chill shores of Nagaroth in the west, but to the east, to the lands of the Old World and beyond. Ivris had but barely endured the onset of one Wa, and Eltharion swore that no other would ever reach the shores of Ulthuan. Atop his Griffin Stormwing, Eltharion swept through the Badlands like a wind of blades. He slaughtered war bosses and ran their armies to ruin. He toppled orc fortresses that had survived earthquakes, Bretonnian crusades, and the vengeance of the dwarfs. Yet, miraculously, there always seemed more greenskins for him to fight. Finally, Eltharion learned the truth. His reputation had spread so far and so wide that war bosses were actually seeking his army, knowing that the pointy-head would give him a proper fight. This revelation ended Eltharion's battles in the Badlands. He now knew that to continue would not abate the greenskin threat. Returning to Ivris, Eltharion began to train his armies and fortify its cities as never before. The next time Wa made landfall on the shores of Ulthuan, the folk of Ivris and their grim warden would be ready for them. So we have a really, really cool lord here, and he's a pretty diverse hybrid lord. I mean, we don't really have that truly with High Elves right now. High Elves, we've got Tyrion and we've got Teclis. Tyrion is very clearly a legendary lord of combat, of a warrior variety, and Teclis is, you know, the high lore master of Hoeth. So it's like, you know, you've got two cut and dry ones. When you look at the Dark Elves, though, Malekith is very hybrid. He's very much like a Manfred von Karstein, only on steroids and in a Darth Vader suit. And you've got Morathai, who is definitely way more of a caster, but she can get a little, she can toss a little around a little bit. But Eltharion, so for starters, we've heard about Stormwing. Stormwing is his Griffin, and to my surprise, Griffin are not a choice, a mount, or an actual monster in the High Elf army, and that's really, really, really weird to me, because Griffins have always been like the staple of the High Elf mount. You've got, like, they didn't have Great Eagles as a mount for the longest time. I think they got those in like 7th edition or some shit. But the Griffins, like, Eltharion has a pretty rocky history too. Eltharion in like editions 1 through 4 is on his Griffin, in editions 5 and 6, I think it is. I think either one or both. He is blinded and he's only on foot and he only has his sword. He kind of looks like a Jedi, like a long-haired Legolas Jedi. And then he comes back onto his Griffin here in his kind of full resplendent armor, as you've seen from the picture. Now, they've done a lot with Eltharion, but he was very much one of the iconic rulers, or at least special characters of the High Elves for a long time, especially in the early editions. So it was just a really big surprise to me that we didn't see any Griffins. I didn't need to see Eltharion. It was pretty obvious to me we were going to get Tyrion or Teclis, but Griffins was, again, huge. So Eltharion would hopefully bring Griffins to the High Elf army as a mount choice. I mean, I think that they've done this before with, and you guys got to correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I wasn't around when the DLC was announced, or the DLC came out for Total War Warhammer 1. I came back right when Beastmen came out. But I think that they added Manticores as a mount to Chaos, and they weren't originally. And I can't recall, maybe to the Chaos Sorcerer Lords, and I can't recall 100%. So I do think they have a precedent of adding mounts to Lords in retrospect. So hopefully they'll do that with the High Elves and the Griffins. But Eltharion has got this Griffin mount. He himself is a pretty big badass. I mean, he's got a really high weapon skill. He's pretty comparable. He's just a little bit below Tyrion as far as tabletop goes. He's got this ability, though, called Blood Oath, which basically makes it so he's got his sworn enemy is orcs and goblins. So maybe with Eltharion, and I guess kind of going on to a bigger kind of small tangent here, if you haven't noticed, in Total War Warhammer 2, you don't choose factions, you choose lords, which are associated with certain factions. So it would make a lot of sense to me if we saw a Tor Ivris faction or a Wardens of Tor Ivris, and they were out on the Badlands or out on the Southlands, maybe when the Mortal Empires DLC comes out, or FLC. But that would be really cool because we don't have a High Elf presence in the Southlands at all. We've got the New World, we've got Ulthuan, which is really close to Nagaron or Nagaroth, so it would make a lot of sense to. We don't need to see one up there, but maybe if we had him on the Wardens of Tor Ivris over right around where the Crusader Knights are, or maybe where the Badlands are, where the Savage Orcs are. That'd be really cool to me. I'd be really excited to see High Elves already kind of getting a foothold in the Old World without having to go across the seas from Ulthuan. So that'd be a great option for Eltharion to start. But he has this Blood Oath thing that basically makes it so that he fights well against Grom the Paunch. So I'm not sure if they're going to do like a tandem release like they've done for some things, like the Grim and the Grave with Grom the Paunch and Eltharion. But he definitely would have some sort of line in his skills that would give him like as far as a campaign ability, that would give him a bonus against orcs and gobs, greenskins in general. But if we're looking at his magic items here, he's got the Fang Sword of Eltharion. This rune-encrusted longsword has been passed down through Eltharion's family for generations. And basically it's just a kind of a pretty conventional Lord magic weapon here, but the way I would look at it as a actual campaign characteristic is it would increase his melee attack and maybe his actual weapon strength, because it doesn't really do much outside of that. It increases his personal strength, and armor saves can't be allowed, so maybe it'll add AP to him if he doesn't have it already. The Helm of Ivris. The Helm of Ivris is the ceremonial crown of the Warden of that proud city, and this actually gives him a small ward save. So I could see that being, and that's very common for High Elves. A lot of factions benefit from one specific kind of repeating motif, and in this case, the High Elves have a ton of ward saves, and the High Magic actually increases that ward save ability, and we've seen that with the actual lore attribute for Teclis and the High Mages. So that would be a really awesome thing with the Helm of Ivris giving him that additional ward save. Then he's got the Talisman of Hoeth, and this is what makes him a hybrid lord. So this finely wrought medallion allows its wearer a measure of the original Warden's magical knowledge. So basically this talisman actually turns him into a level 2 wizard on tabletop. So they don't really have levels in this game, but I guess you could compare it to a hero wizard versus a lord level wizard, like Teclis versus, say, just a standard high elf mage. So maybe with that, we will see Eltharion having the ability to cast a certain set amount of spells. Maybe he'll have access to like the Lore Master of Hoeth spells, which are basically the basic entry level spell of every single, well, the majority of the Winds of Magic. So I would be really interested to see that, how they incorporate that ability into Eltharion. Like maybe he doesn't have it to start, but as soon as he gets the Talisman of Hoeth from campaign, he can grant it. Or it's a high cost item for multiplayer. And in all honesty, if Eltharion made it into the game in even an inkling of his tabletop iteration, he'd be a very competitive lord. Griffins aren't too shabby. They're really strong, kind of middle ground between, say, like a great eagle and a dragon, or just something where it's they don't have the staying power of a dragon, but they can definitely challenge the board because they do cause terror. So they do have a lot of characteristics going for them. So if we were to see Eltharion, he would be he wouldn't directly be the answer to a Malekith, but he would definitely be the kind of hybrid lord I think that the High Elves really need right now. And maybe giving him an anti-large or an anti-infantry characteristic. I would hope for maybe an anti-large, because if he is prone to fighting greenskins, namely like Grom the Paunch and the such, he's used to fighting larger creatures. And the Griffin itself, built for battle, so hopefully we'll see something like that. I think that the High Elves in the current meta right now need an Eltharion the Grin to be able to be more flexible to the threats that are on the board right now, because in Total Warhammer 2 there's so many different things that can challenge them in so many different ways that they need an Eltharion or some of the other lords we're about to talk about. But that's Eltharion the Grim, the Warden of Tor Ivris. We'll jump into a pretty big fan favorite here, Alith Anar, the Shadow King. Tradition maintains that the Nagaraith chose Alith Anar as ruler after Malekith fled into the west. The Lord was the last heir of a great line, his forebears having been slain by the Witch King's minions. In those days, there were many Dark Elves still hiding in Ulthuan, and Alith Anar took to their eradication with a vengeance. Those of his foes who were not killed in battle were crucified upon the trees, where those who passed could witness their grisly fate, and as he attacked and burned each enemy encampment, his fame grew. After the Battle of Griffin Pass, Alith Anar captured 700 Dark Elves and had them nailed high upon the white cliffs overlooking the narrow valley, where they hung until they died. The corpses were suspended for years afterwards, until their flesh rotted and their bones tumbled into piles beside the road. Such is the power of the place that these bones can be seen to this day, together with the red marks left by Alith Anar's iron nails upon the cliffs. Years later, Alith Anar led his warriors out of Nagaraith, and against the newly raised fortress of Nagaroth. The Shadow Warriors soon became a thorn in the Witch King's side, harassing his ships, ambushing his warriors, and plundering his convoys. There was nothing the Shadow Warriors would not dare. It was said that a disguised Alith Anar danced with Morathai at the court of the Witch King, before stealing the Stone of Midnight from her treasury. Mortified, Morathai sent witch elves to hunt him down, but he tricked them into drinking poison mixed with blood, and so escaped to Ulthuan, where his warriors hailed him as the Shadow King. None know Alith Anar's final fate. The Shadow Warriors believe he still walks the world, a restless spirit of vengeance. They tell that on the darkest night of the season of frost, a grey-garbed figure can be seen kneeling before Eltharior's tomb, head bowed in silent contemplation of the bloody deeds the coming year will bring. Other High Elves scoff at such tales, but few amongst them would not wish to be proven wrong. For his part, the Witch King has passed beyond the veil of mortal concerns, but if Malekith any longer fears anything, he fears the vengeance of Alith Anar. We have your Shadow Warrior, your kind of hit-and-run style ranged lord for the High Elves, and we've seen a very we don't see a lot of ranged lords. I feel in Total War Warhammer. I mean, we see some that are more hybrid style with Arian, but we haven't seen anything kind of like Alith Anar, who doesn't really have the staying power of an Arian, because Alith Anar would be very kind of almost like a souped up waystalker, because if you look at it, his magic items, he's got this thing called the Stone of Midnight, which is just talked about. This jewel was originally gifted to Morathai by an Arian and cloaks the wearer in shadows. So what it would actually do is give him a ward save, but it would also give him a bonus to defense and the way this makes it sound, in addition, enemies suffer a -1 penalty to hit when shooting against Alith Anar or any unit he has joined. So I see that as his leadership aura confers a bonus defense to ranged. So that way, maybe Alith Anar either gets stock from that capability, or he gets this ability that makes the range do less damage to him. That's how I could really see that being factored into this game. Or the Shadow Crown. The Shadow Crown is the symbol of the rightful rulers of Nagaraith, a simple silver circlet set with a single diamond. By speaking the name of his kingdom and defiantly claiming his rulership, Alith Anar can freeze time for the blink of an eye, giving himself a brief instant to slip away from harm, which is really cool. Like this moment where he just kind of, stands toe to toe with something, pulls out this pulls out the Shadow Crown and basically declares himself, "I am Alith Anar, the Shadow King of Nagarath," which freezes time for a second. Maybe time is like, "Oh, whoa, this guy's serious." But I'm not sure how they would factor this into Total War Warhammer, because it just gives the unit he's in Swift Stride. So maybe it's a small speed burst. Maybe it's something that's going to be akin to Skier Leap. I'm not sure how they're going to do Shadow Crown. If you guys have any ideas, do let me know. But I think the biggest thing of Alith Anar and what would make him very terrifying, is the Moon Bow. An exquisite weapon forged from a pale metal that glitters in the moonlight. The Moon Bow was handed to Alith Anar by the goddess Lilith herself. The merest whisper of its arrows strikes fear in the hearts of the treacherous Nagarathi. So, the first description of this in the book is, the Moonbow is a bolt thrower. So that should be terrifying in and of itself. So basically, Alith Anar is a walking Eagleclaw bolt thrower. And he has the ability to either do multiple shots or one larger shot. But he is quick to fire, so he can shoot this thing quite quickly. Without having to worry about much, because he can move this. You do this on the move. So if he is a roving Eagleclaw bolt thrower that confers a negative leadership penalty to Dark Elves, I don't know if they would do it Dark Elf specific, but maybe just to leadership as a whole, that'd be pretty terrifying. And if the Stone of Midnight gave him stock, or he already had stock included in his persona, he would be that'd be terrifying. I don't even know how I would factor that. Like, my back line would just be compromised so quickly by a stocked Alith Anar lining up and just shooting multiple shots down the back line of my army. So I think that Alith Anar is a really cool way to get a lot of different utility out of a Lord that I don't think is too common in Total War Warhammer. We don't see a Lord quite like an Alith Anar that is, stock-centric, that is a ranged Lord, specifically a ranged Lord in that sense, because I feel like the ranged Lords are very lackluster. The Wood Elf one, the Wood Elf ranged variant is pretty good, but it's because it's got its ability to lock things down. So I feel like a Alith Anar would be a pretty cool way to challenge that. And I think with Total War Warhammer 2, we're going to see a lot of Lords with stock. I think that Alith Anar would come as maybe an Assassin Pack DLC, including Alith Anar, including Deathmaster Snikch, the Eshin Clan Assassin, Master Assassin, and Deathblade, or Shadowblade, Deathblade. I can't think of his name right now. The Lord we've talked about for the Dark Elves that does that is an assassin. So if they all came in one pack together, they all had stock. It would be kind of a scary thing, because the game becomes a little bit less straightforward. You're always kind of looking out, okay, where is Alith Anar going to pop up and destroy my backline, or where is Snikch going to pop up and murder my lord? So I think Alith Anar and all those stock lords in general would really add a lot of character and a lot of spice to the Warhammer world, and kind of, or at least Total War, at least kind of break down some of the direct outright barriers, or not barrier, but at least direct outright style of play that we see right now. The next lady I want to actually save for last is Alariel, but I want to jump into these other two more hero level lords, because I think they're pretty cool before we jump into the Everqueen last. She's going to be a little bit bigger of an entry here, but let's just jump on into Corhill. He is the captain of the White Lions, and I love Corhill. He's probably one of my favorite characters as well, probably because I really like White Lions. But let's jump into, again, Corhill, the captain of the White Lions. When the captain of the White Lions met his death at the hands of the Dark Elf assassin Arian Poisonblade, the bodyguard of the Phoenix King gathered to select a new leader from amongst their ranks. Their choice, approved and blessed by the Phoenix King, was the warrior Corhill. Corhill was a famous warrior even before his rise to captain. Years before, it had been he who had hunted and slain the great lion Tyrannus. This was a particularly ferocious creature, mutated by the warping power of chaos to an armor-hided brute that was mighty even by the standards of other white lions. Dozens of Thracian hunters had tried to bring Tyrannus down, but the beast had slain them all. Young Corhill, however, was not to be deterred, and he headed into the Thracian uplands in search of his prey. Tyrannus' trail was not hard to follow, for it was marked with the bloody bodies of those who had attempted to end his rampage. When Corhill finally encountered Tyrannus, the lion was near mad with bloodlust, and savage beyond belief. Yet, Kurnos was with the young hunter that day. Soon realizing his axe blows had no effect on Tyrannus' magical hide, Corhil shifted tactics. In a feat of physical strength unheard of for an elf, he wrestled the raging beast to the ground and throttled the life from its thrashing body. Corhil's success earned him an instant invitation to join the Phoenix King's White Lion bodyguard. Only twice before had such an offer been made to so young a warrior, and Corhil was swift to accept. In the decades that followed, the young hunter grew into a grizzled White Lion veteran, proving his worth time and again against Dark Elf assassins and the dreaded beasts of the Anuli Mountains. Thus has Corhil served Finubar the Seafarer with unfailing loyalty for many years, and has stood steadfastly beside him at many battles. Indeed, Corhil's gemstone set belt was a gift from Finubar following the Battle of Tor Acre, where Corhil hurled himself in the path of Morek the Black's Manticore. Corhil was badly mauled, but gave far better than he got, disemboweling the beast with a single swing of his axe before unconsciousness took him. The White Lions claim Corhil to be the mightiest elf in all of Ulthuan, and certainly his strength and stature is legendary. Yet Corhil is no lumbering giant, for he wields his long axe with a dexterity and grace that makes even his fellow White Lions appear cumbersome. His honest demeanor and noble bearing have won him many friends amongst the lords of Ulthuan, and the heroes of other races besides. Corhil has ever repaid their friendship with the same loyalty he offers his liege, and gladly marches to his allies' aid should the Phoenix King consent to sparing his services. Thus has Corhil's axe spilt blood in many lands, and is the cause of many peoples on his own. So, Corhil is obviously a special character White Lion. And so you can imagine what that's going to be like, your AP kind of characteristic of the White Lion coming in through Corhil here. He actually wields Chial. It's the captain of the White Lions, has carried his keen-edged and finely balanced blade since the regiment's founding. Corhil is but most of the recent and long-honored line. So this actual axe, it would infer the Killing Blow special rule onto him, and as well as increases his strength. That's how it happens in tabletop. But we have seen the Killing Blow being allocated across two characters in the Total War Warhammer world in a different way. We've seen it as an anti-infantry mechanic. That's what it's like for the Grave Guard. The Grave Guard have AP and anti-infantry. So maybe this would give Corhil an anti-infantry mechanic as he's swinging two axes around, because that's what's happening here. He's swinging Chial and another hand axe all over the place. So maybe he is going to be this AP anti-infantry captain of the White Lions powerhouse, just chopping up Skaven left and right, beheading dark elves at every turn, and soon to be greenskins. But maybe not the lizardmen as much, because they have scales and weird eyes and like slithery tongues and oh god, my body. But then he's also got this pelt of Tyrannus. So in return for Corhil's loyal service, Finubar directed that the pelt of the Great Lion of Trace be fashioned into a magnificent enchanted cloak. So this cloak is basically what it does for him is makes it so his armor is a little bit better. But the biggest thing here is it would probably confer a silver shield defense against ranged, as well as nulling the effects of poison. Because in the book it says he has a chance to poison doesn't automatically wound him. So rather than doing kind of the split mechanic of that, I could see them actually just making it so that it just poisons can't affect Corhil, which would be pretty crazy, because we have a lot of poisons on the battlefield right now, right? Especially with the witch elves and theirs that causes rampage. So if you had Corhil up against a unit of witch elves, he wouldn't just immediately rampage out of control, which would be pretty huge with an anti-infantry AP powerhouse like Corhil. So I'd be really interested to see him as just kind of like maybe a direct competition for a Queek. You could put Corhil against Queek, and they're both not going to be, well, Corhil's not necessarily looked at as, hey, he's the most tanky of lords, but he's definitely going to be a little bit more of a duelist, a little bit more of a direct damage dealer, more glass cannony, I guess you could suppose. But it'd be great to see him, because Corhil is, I see as really being a easy addition to the game. There's not a lot to do here, and there actually is a lord in the campaign that you can buy through influence that is almost like a Corhil. From what I understand, he was actually included in the game as part of a Make-A-Wish thing, a Make-A-Wish, a special wish from Creative Assembly. They dropped him in. They said, hey, here you go. And I've not gotten a chance to use him, but I've heard he's quite good. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just straight up made that Court Hill's replacement and put him into the game. So, or into the multiplayer portion of the game. I'd really love to see that. I think it'd be really kind of cool from both a Warhammer lore perspective, but more importantly from just like a really cool like humanitarian perspective. That'd be pretty awesome. But that concludes the Captain of the White Lions, Court Hill. Moving actually into another captain, we have Craig. Moving into another captain, we actually have Caradrian, the captain of the Phoenix Guard. Caradrian was an arrogant lordling in his youth, handsome, rich, powerful, and conceited. He was the very archetype of the jaded high elf aristocrat. There was no rumor he would not foster, no intrigue to which he would not stoop. By all accounts, his petty nature was such that even his family would have long ago cast him out, were it not for the fact that such an act would have been a break with all tradition. Caradrian's life changed when he made a pilgrimage to the Shrine of Assyrian, a journey which all High Elf nobles are expected to undertake at least once. There, in perhaps the worst display of arrogance in his life, Caradrian stole into the Holy Chamber of Days. What he witnessed there, no one knows. But when he emerged, he was a changed man. On his forehead was the glowing rune of Assyrian, marking him as a servant of the Creator God. On that day, Caradrian gave up all his worldly possessions and took the vows of the Phoenix Guard. He has not uttered a word ever since. Caradrian spends long days in secluded meditation, reading the fiery letters that tell of the past, the present, and the future. At other times, he stands atop the walls of the shrine, his keen gaze scouring the lands of Ulthuan. Indeed, it is said that to no other event is so small as to evade Caradrian's gaze, and no sound small enough to escape his hearing. Some have accused him of harnessing the prophecies of Assyrian in order to influence the future, a transgression against the Creator God ranked amongst the highest of blasphemies. However, the truth of the matter is that Caradrian simply notices things that others do not, and has no prattling tongue to distract him from the matters of greater import. Over his long years of study and contemplation, Caradrian has become ever closer to the thoughts of Assyrian, until finally the hand of the Creator marked him as the captain of the Phoenix Guard. Now, he leads the devoted guardians of Assyrian during times of peace and war. There is divine strength in his hand, and the wisdom of Assyrian sits upon his noble brow. Caradrian normally fights at the head of the Phoenix Guard, as befits his rank, but sometimes conducts a battle from the back of Ashtari, oldest and wisest of the Phoenixes of the Flame Spire. Theirs is a bond that goes back centuries to Caradrian's earliest days of service. At the Battle of Finival Plain, Ashtari picked an unequal fight with the Black Dragon Khor-Zarandar, and it was only Caradrian's intervention that rescued the Phoenix from a grisly fate. Since those days, both Ashtari's flames and the impetuousness have faded to naught, but his loyalty to Caradrian burns as brightly as ever. So we have clearly a Phoenix Guard themed special character here, and one of a really good competitive pick if they were to add it to Total Warhammer 2, because if he was riding a Frostheart Phoenix, he would be an absolute monster. I mean, as it is right now, whenever I choose the High Elves in competitive quick battle play, I always take 2 Phoenixes. In the builds that I don't, I kind of look at those experimental fun builds like, whatever. But, like, the Flamespire Phoenixes, both of them are just rad. The Frostheart Phoenix, which Ashtari is a Frostheart Phoenix, is huge because they have that aura that basically slows people's attacks down. They do AP damage. Their magic resistance is higher as a result of the Winds of Magic, so they're really, really beastly beasts. they're monsters that really kind of hold their own. Like, I've had them, like, I threw both my Phoenixes against Malekith, and I mean, the Flamespire one kind of floundered out all over the place, but the Frostheart Phoenix, that's the second fart noise I've made today. But the Frostheart Phoenix kind of held its own and stood there for a long time. So I'd love to see Caradrian on one of these things with all of his special rules, because it's interesting because he's got this one rule called Mark of Assyrian, which means that when he dies, things that kill him get damage. So whether that means he explodes or how that really factors into the game, because I would love to see a special character, especially the High Elves, who are all haughty and nice and proper and prim. As soon as one of their lords gets killed, just fucking explodes everywhere. pointed head fly into the damn sun. But that's something I would really love to see, as far as how they would incorporate that into the game. His other special rule is the Phoenix Blade. This ancient flame-breathed blade was enchanted for Cor Balon, the first captain of the Phoenix Guard. So basically what this is, it gives him flaming attacks. So basically picture this Phoenix Guard, which are already imposing as it is. They already have their wards say their high armor on top of a high armor AP slowing melee attack, melee resistance beast with a flaming attack, and its thing, the beast itself is on snow, on ice, is wreathed in ice. That's what I'm gonna go with. Yeah, it's not on snow. Snow's on a drug. Well, if you're in California, it is, but which I am. So I really like Caradrian as far as what he would mean from a competitive choice or competitive pick in the multiplayer world. I don't know if they would make him to drop him into campaign, because where would he start? The Shrine of Assyrian? And I mean, he's not geared towards capturing a bunch of land, so I don't know how they would do this. Like, maybe he would be an influence choosable hero for the High Elves. I'm not sure how they would incorporate it to a campaign perspective, and it's very rare do they choose to make a legendary lore that you can't also play in campaign. So I don't know how or if they would include Caradrian, because maybe putting this guy on a Phoenix is just too much, because the Phoenixes themselves do so much outside as just a Phoenix. I mean, while as the dragons also do quite a bit, there's a lot of utility around the Phoenix units themselves. Like the Flamespire Phoenix can explode and come right back to life. So there's a lot going on than just simply scaly skin, causing terror, breath attacks, big ass creature. So I'm not sure how they would incorporate Caradrian if they did at all. But we're gonna round things up here with our very last lord, or should I say lady, Alariel the Radiant, Everqueen of Ulthuan. And this one's a bit of a doozy here, so hang tight. There's this, she's 2 pages of lore and special rules, so we've gotta save the biggest and best for last, right? Alariel the Radiant, Everqueen of Ulthuan. Since the Golden Age, the Everqueen has served as Aisha's chosen priestess in the mortal world. Whilst the tradition of the Phoenix King is relatively new, a mere 6,500 years in age, there has always been an Everqueen. Alariel is the 11th Everqueen to rule since the time of an Arian. Her flowing hair is like a golden cloud, and it is said that so great and so timeless is her beauty that it can move even the immortal gods to tears. The Everqueen's power is that of nature itself. Where Alariel walks, the fields start to blossom and flowers spring forth from the ground. When she is joyful, the sky is clear and the land for leagues around blooms with life and light. When she mourns, the skies weep with her, and when her eyes darken with rage, thunder roars across the hills. As a servant of light and nature, the Everqueen is opposed to corruption in all its forms. Thus does she remain above the petty intrigues of her own court. Not even the most devious heart can conceal untruth from her pure, unflinching gaze. More importantly, her presence is anathema to tainted creatures of all kinds. She can banish demons with a single touch and unravel the dark bindings of the undead with but a gesture. All the benevolent gifts of Aisha are hers to wield. No wound is beyond her skill to mend, and there is no shadow upon the heart that she cannot banish. Alas, Alariel's powers recede as the dark tide of chaos grows stronger, and the mortal world cries out in torment. When the power of chaos is at its peak, even her mortal frame grows weak, the brilliant gold of her hair fading almost to pure white, her limbs growing enervated and brittle. At such times, the elven race stands upon the brink of extinction. Should the Everqueen perish, her people would surely pass into the darkness soon after. The Everqueen does not fight in a conventional manner, and eschews weapons of all kinds, but she is no less dangerous for it. Her touch, so soothing to the pure-hearted, is anathema to those with even a taint of corruption in their hearts. The victim might not feel anything at first, but as the magic of her touch travels through his body, it grows more powerful, feeding off every black desire and cruel purpose. Moments later, the foe is naught but a cleansed and withered corpse, his evil forever purged by Aisha's light. Moreover, Alariel wields the winds of light and life with all the skill of Saphri's most learned high mages, and can call forth great storms of cleansing energy to sweep the agents of chaos from her hallowed presence. Whilst most of her predecessors deliberately stayed at a distance from war as circumstances would allow, Alarielle has made a point of leading armies in Ulthuan's defense. At the start of her reign, she had little choice, for Valoran was overrun by Dark Elves and worshippers of chaos. With her nation overwhelmed and the Phoenix King under siege in Lothern, it fell to Alarielle to rally the High Elves to Ulthuan's defense upon the Finneval Plain. Since then, Alarielle has commanded many armies in the Phoenix King's stead, whilst Finubar remains ensconced in the highest towers of Lothern, pursuing an agenda hidden from all but his closest allies. Not whilst she still draws breath will Alarielle allow Avalorn's beauty to be despoiled by war, a determination that many beings of tainted heart have encountered to their ruin. So it is that a High Elf army might find glorious aid in its darkest hours. As dawn breaks, one of the Everqueen's handmaidens sounds the horn of Aisha, so that the goddess might notice her high priestess upon the field of battle. Then the banner of Avalorn is raised high, its living threads shimmering in the sunshine. As word spreads of Alarielle's arrival, despair vanishes like shadows in daylight, and a newfound resolve arises to take its place. Then the horn of Aisha sounds once more, spurring the assembled elves onward into deeds of legend. Despite Alarielle's many victories in the years since the Battle of Finneval Plain, many elves are secretly appalled by her actions. Tradition dictates that the Everqueen sees to the spiritual defense and well-being of the elves, leaving the Phoenix King to prosecute wars of blood and fire, and the High Elves value tradition above almost all. Others see this as a sign that Aisha herself has become more warlike in these desperate times, that the misery and destruction of the mortal world has roused even the gods to battle. But you see here, she's a pretty pivotal character in the lore of not just the current High Elves, but the High Elves as a whole. I mean, the Everqueen is even more important to the Everqueen spiritually and, in actuality to them, on a political basis. So, in tabletop, Alarielle is a level 4 wizard, which is, again, just a lore level wizard for Total War Warhammer terms, that can use Lore of Life, Light, and High Magic. Now, we've seen a lot of these lords kind of come into play here. Like we see a Teclis and we see a Mazdamundi who have access to every single lore. And they kind of gave them their own special smattering, their own lore, more or less. They gave it like the lore of Teclis, which has like Shem's Burning Gaze, Net of Amontok, Chain Lightning, the other Heaven's ability that buffs you. They made basically their own lore for them. So they have their own special, like specific spells from the lores. So I don't know if they would do that with an Alarielle, giving her Net of Amontok, Banishment, maybe even Apotheosis, Dwellers Below, and what's another good one? Maybe Hand of Glory. That'd probably be a good one to fit her theme of buffing and inspiring the High Elves. But it's interesting how they did that with Total War Warhammer 2, because I think they wanted to try and reduce a lot of the confusion or a lot of the headache from, like, you look at a Manfred von Karstein and he has all these spells. He's got Death, Shadow, and Vampires. And to a newcomer, that's pretty intimidating. I'd be like, oh god, I never want to play this guy. He's bald. He looks like Pitbull, but dead. So I don't think I'd dabble that route. In fact, I didn't touch Manfred von Karstein for, like, ever. So Alarielle, though, I'm not sure if they do the kind of same treatment they've done for everything else. But you see here, she's very Aisha-themed. She's very much like Orion we've already seen with the Cloak of Aisha. So with the Horn of Aisha, which is an heirloom magic item we'll get to here soon, she herself has some abilities where she would kind of fall into, what's her name? The lady for the Bretonnians. So she's got the Boon of Aisha, which makes it so that all units that are around her, well, all units attached to her in specific in the tabletop, I would say as an aura around her, have magic attacks. In addition, they're immune to fear and terror. So I would love to see that incorporated right into the game, just like we see with the lady for the Bretonnia. It would just be kind of almost the same exact thing, but just for High Elves. She does have a Chaos Bane ability that makes it so that any demons around here suffer damage, but we don't have any demonic things in the game yet. Maybe we'll see that in the third one, or we'll see it added slowly. I mean, the only things that we see as demons are Big Bird for the most part. So I'm not sure how, or Chaos Spawns, you could say, are demonic, and some of the other things here and there, but not enough stuff that special rule would make a really good translation into this game. Alarielle was a really competitive pick in tabletop because the demons, Chaos Demons, were god tier. Everyone in a competitive circuit there was like 1 or 2 armies of them always floating around just stomping the land. And if you chose Alarielle, with the Banner of the World Dragon in tabletop, you just had a chance to pretty much squash the demons outright. So the Chaos Bane special rule I don't really see coming into play just yet. But she has this Touch of the Everqueen that gives her the heroic killing blow special rule. So I'm not sure if we would actually see her with a heroic killing blow, knowing that she's not meant to really be in combat. A lot of her stuff isn't geared towards her fighting, it's more towards people around her fighting. So I'm not sure if we'll give that to her, if they will give that to her, because it's only directed towards people with Forces of Chaos. So her special items here, magic items, are pretty lore heavy too, so let's get into those too. The Shield Stone of Aisha. The Shield Stone is as old as Ulthuan itself, and pulses with inner energies. Only the Everqueen can release the power it contains to ward away harm from the pure-hearted, deflecting mortal blows and dashing arrows to the floor. So this basically just gives ward save. No, this huge sweeping description of you get a ward save. So Eltharion, from a campaign perspective, maybe she starts in an Avalon. That would make a lot of sense. And we actually didn't talk about like where Alith Anar would start, because I want to kind of get into this. So if we have Tyrion starting in Lothern and Eataine, it would make a lot of sense for Eltharion to start in Avalon, but it also would make a lot of sense if we had like a Nagarath where Alith Anar starts, because we don't have a northern starting point for the elves, and that's where a lot of hell's breaking loose up there, right? You've got the Cult of Cain is up there going wild. You've got one of the expansionists, Tyrannoch probably is probably going to be aggressive towards you, and you've already got the barbarians to deal with. So I think like an Alith Anar starting a Nagarath, which also has to deal with Dark Elves, would be a really, really cool, really hard special campaign to start, with Eltharion being even a slightly reduced difficulty to that. But we'll move on here to the Star of Avalon. About her noble brow, the Everqueen wears a diadem of Ithomar, in which is set a single radiant gem, given by an Arian in Trist of Astariel. This is no ordinary gem, but is said to be a star taken from heavens by Aisha and bound within a magic crystal, and holds the power to heal mortal wounds. So basically, Star of Avalon would almost be like a bound magical spell, like Teclis has Fireball as a bound magical item. This would basically be either like an Apotheosis, an Earth Blood, some sort of healing spell, because that's exactly what it is in the game. It just gives a quick little heal to a special character. So, well, it's for a single friendly character within 12 inches. So what I would see that is, it's a bound spell, healing like a massive or a minor healing ability, only targetable though on characters and lords, or heroes and lords. That's the way I could see that transiting out, which would be really cool, I think. Then we've got the Stave of Avalon. The Stave of Avalon is a symbol of Elthariel's rule over the land of Avalon. It is an ancient heirloom which is passed from one Everqueen to the next, and it has been since before the time of the Phoenix King. It enables Elthariel to gather the magic that flows through the land and direct it as she wishes. So basically, this allows her to recast an ability that was already cast. So I'm not sure if we'll see that. That seems very strong. It depends on the spells that they would give her. But if we're thinking of it from a multiplayer standpoint, okay, your army's really kind of up against the ropes here. You've got 2 units of Phoenix Guard that are really beat down. They really needed some extra aid. Boom, I'll pop Apotheosis on one of them. Okay, boom, I'll pop Stave of Avalon and pop it again on another one. That'd be a really cool mechanic. From a multiplayer standpoint, holy crap, would that be just kind of... would be strong, again, depending on the abilities they gave her. Like, if they gave her any, like, a double net of Amantag, you could just net a whole front line. Like, holy crap. You'd stop the enemy dead in its tracks. Oh! Or if maybe it has, like, some sort of recast on it, where if you cast a spell, you cannot press the ability for, like, maybe 10 seconds. So you can't just stack 2 things. Like, I know she wouldn't have this ability, but double stacking Soul Leech would be pretty brutal, I think. So, I'd love to see that put into the game in some way or another. Maybe it would just be a quick surge of because they already kind of have something like that for the mages. They can have a quick, either they can choose to regenerate the Winds of Magic faster, or they can do a quick shot to the Winds of Magic. Maybe that would do this. It would just be a larger boost of Winds of Magic, so you could cast any other spell again quickly. But I'd love to kind of see that, and that way it wouldn't damn the recycle of a spell, because if you're casting Apotheosis back to back, it has to have a recycle, or else it kind of unbalances itself, right? So with Elthariel, we've got 2 items: the Horn of Aisha and the Banner of Avalon. These are items that the army can choose, not so much just her. So I'm going to read them just because they fit into her profile, and I don't really know how they'd be applied to the game because they're attached to her, but we'll see. We'll read these nonetheless. The Horn of Aisha is fashioned from a single pearl white seashell. Its creation remains a mystery to all the scholars and mages of Ulthuan, but it is known that the Horn of Aisha has existed for as long as there have been Everqueens. When it is winded, that's a weird thing to say, the call or this beautiful instrument can split the veil between the mortal and immortal realms, rousing the mother goddesses to grant a blessing upon her favorite children. So, basically, it just makes it so anything that's kind of affected by the Horn of Aisha would have a better melee or ranged attack. If I'm translating it to Total War terms, it basically says units receive a +1 to hit bonus on all shooting and close combat attacks. +1 to hit would be the equivalent of melee attack for us in the Total War world. So Banner of Avalon. Woven from living leaves and the hair of the Everqueen's handmaidens, the Banner of Avalon is an artifact of unsurpassed purity. It is crafted anew when an Everqueen ascends to the throne and will one day serve as her funeral shroud. Whilst the Everqueen lives, the Banner of Avalon is a beacon of light and life. Should she perish, the magic fades from the mortal world, spiraling into the realm beyond to shield the Everqueen from the thirsting attentions of Slaanesh. So, basically, spells from lore and light get a bonus being cast. So I'm not sure if this would infer a bonus to the actual casting abilities of Eltharion, or if something special would come of that. But I'd be really interested to see how that would translate into the game. But really, that's going to conclude things here today, guys. Hopefully you got a really good idea of how these legendary lords work. I really wanted to kind of go over their lore real quick, as well as their special abilities, because I think that we're going to be seeing these as some of the DLC lords for the High Elves. Maybe not all of them, but I think a good majority of them. We've seen a lot of good legendary lords added in Total War Warhammer 1, and they were kind of saying that, hey, you know, we'd like to add more legendary lords. I think it was like something up to 6 or something of that sort. You guys can correct me, obviously, on that, for every race. So that they're looking to jam-pack these races to the brim for starting locations and different ways to approach their armies. So I'm very interested to see what we get all said and done before Total War Warhammer 3 comes out. But hopefully we'll be seeing maybe the Sisters of Avalon, the special units attached to Eltharion. I was thinking maybe those would be Regiments of Renown or High Elf Archers with light armor, but I don't think that's actually going to be the case. Now, the more I kind of think about it, maybe they'll actually be their own unit, kind of like a Sisters of the Thorn. But maybe we'll see handmaidens, some stuff of the other sorts. But thanks for watching here today, guys. Hopefully you got a lot of information. If there's other things you want to know about, please feel free to leave me a comment. Let me know. I'm always happy to provide more information for y'all. I'll be hopefully doing one of these for Lizardmen too. That's the only race of the 4 that I haven't done yet. So we'll get some Lizardmen stuff up. I do want to do a video on some of the High Elf legendary buildings that we see in the campaign. Warrior 695, I think it was so kind to post onto the subreddit, and I'll actually cite him properly in the video. All of the legendary locations, or sorry, the unique building locations for the High Elves, and did one for the Dark Elves, so I want to do a video on that, so those of you wondering what those are and the lore behind them, we can get that all kind of sussed out for you. But thanks for watching here today, guys. Have a good one. Be on the lookout for the head-to-head campaign coming out from Turner and I. Let me know if you want to see anything, and take care.